Literally no one said, I want to grow up and sit in meetings all day long. And no one came to Shopify to sit in meetings. People came here to and help entrepreneurs succeed, help founders. And it just so happens to do really good work as a builder, you need focus time. And focus time and meeting time are the opposite things from each other. You need uninterrupted focus time. And if your entire day is peppered by half-hour meetings here and there, you just can't ever get going.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine if Van Gogh had to paint while perpetually interrupted by someone every 20 minutes.
Today, my guest is Kaz Nejatian, Chief Operating Officer at Shopify. Kaz and I spoke about why traditional career ladders are broken, why strategy is the least important part of building products, and why Shopify canceled all recurring meetings. I think this interview will feel like therapy if you ever worked at big tech companies. Be sure to like and subscribe for more interviews like this. Now, let's dive in.
All right, Kaz, I'm super excited to talk to you today. I think I haven't worked at Shopify myself, right? But I really liked the post that Toby wrote about Shopify being a craft-centric company. Just curious, what's the difference between crafters and managers to you?
Yeah, look, it's actually an interesting thing because the main difference is about what is your primary job. What is the thing you spend most of your job doing, right? There's a famous hologram essay called Builder Time and Manager Time. And I think it kind of gets to the same idea, which is when you are at work, what is the most important thing you do? What's the most of your time spent on doing? And most people want their primary job to be building, right? To actually be building things. And unfortunately, most companies aren't built for those people who want to spend most of their time building. Most companies are built for people who want to spend most of their time managing. And it's because of very weird incentive in companies because the people who build companies are managers. They're optimized for the wrong thing. So our job at Shopify is to make this place a crafter's paradise, to clear the obstacle from crafters so they can do their best work and can be rewarded for doing that work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think a lot of product people, engineers, they actually really love the craft. But I've worked at many different companies, and if you look at the job ladders of some of these companies, it's always like, oh, you want to become a director, you gotta manage 5 people, or you gotta grow your headcount. Right. So how do you kind of separate the crafter or the IC or
yeah,
so just pushing people down the path?
Traditional job ladders that essentially everyone stole from the army post World War II are just totally broken. They're just broken, right? You understand why in the army you wouldn't want a general that has no direct reports. That would make no sense in an army. But most things aren't the armies, right? So one of the things we've done is we've actually completely bifurcated job levels at Shopify. So there's a management track and a crafter track, and they both go up to the same levels. They both go down to the same levels and up to the same level. And so in order to get promoted and get more money, more responsibility, broader scope, you don't need more people, right? So you can actually, and those are it's incredibly difficult to do this because most systems aren't designed to do this, right? But one of the things that's is, what if you completely block yourself from considering number of people in a career ladder for crafters? And once you do that, you actually realize what type of things you care about. Is management complicated? Sure. But is leading an open source project that affects the entire Ruby code base also complicated? Yes, that's also complicated. It's just a different level of complication. And in some ways, it's just cheaper and easier hack to say, well, complication equals the number of people, which is just totally wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I was talking to someone who was a CPO at a company before, and now he's just going back to being either a IC or a line level manager. And he told me what he really loves is just going to a room and talking to engineers and doing a whiteboard, talking to customers. And that's kind of what I really love doing too. And as companies scale, internal optics start becoming more important if you don't fight against it. Some examples is people spend a ton of time on executive presentations or this kind of stuff. So how do you guys prevent this stuff from happening as Shopify grows? I mean, it's already a big company.
Yeah, I mean, part of our job at Shopify is to be a company that rages against being a big company. That's literally part of our job, to be a flat company built of crafters rather than discipline. And I think what happens is that there's a pernicious exercise where, especially for product managers, where executive product reviews become kind of a show where they become pixel perfect, and we just how to fight this. One of the ways we fight this is by literally telling people to not spend their time, by limiting the tools they can use in presentations such that they're not like designed to be pixel perfect, right?
Yep.
That's one thing we do. Secondly, we actually jump into code very frequently in product reviews on Shopify. We literally jump directly into code saying, show me the code. Let's see how this would work. And the way we actually build product with Shopify is different than most companies, where we build products in stages. The first stage is called proposal. We're like, hey, I want to propose a product to be built. The second stage is prototype. You actually have to prototype the thing and see how it would work in code. And then we do a review at prototype stage, which changes, like no one ever asks in a product review in Shopify, well, what is the strategy for this? Because that just tends to be the least meaningful part of whether it's a good product or not. So we actually have like this idea that every product manager should be like kind of an internal, like a McKinsey or BCG consultant in a big company. It's just a bad idea. Like it's objectively wrong. Or you want it to be that extremely user-focused, have a high degree of empathy for users, take an insane amount of ownership over problems, and then be risk maximizing machines, right? And if you're not careful with, if you've got those three things, and what PMs become is keepers of strategy, quote unquote, where you end up having, it's actually the worst of both worlds. You end up having very smart people who are incredibly credentialed, spending all their time writing strategy memos, whose only job is to increase headcount so they can write more strategy memos. Like instead of shipping products, you ship career plans. Like,
Yes.
like the job of Shopify is to build products. Our job isn't to build career ladders. So we focus on our product reviews on what product is shipping rather than on strategy.
Yeah, you should be my therapist, man. This resonates so much with me. Like I've seen a lot of like really good optics PMs. They have this like big vision or like this like 3-year strategy, and then they just ship the MVP and they never actually ship anything else. That's it. So it's like, what did the customer actually get from your big vision doc?
People misunderstand. Honestly, people very broadly misunderstand how products are built. Like people who cosplay as product builders assume good products are built by like a 3 or 5 year strategy documents. That's not how they're built. Good products are built by tinkering, by perpetual tinkering at the edges of a thing. That's how they're built. And basically everything you ever use or love has been built that same way, right? And it's just, I think people misunderstand the value, what value creation is of product managers, and as a guy who prides himself on being a product manager.
Yeah. How does Shopify, like PMs or other roles, stay in touch with the customer? Like, is there a lot of like hurdles to jump through to even talk to a customer, or anyone can just go off and talk to?
No, it's part of your job to talk to a customer. You should talk to customers all the time. In fact, even better, you should be a customer. Lots of Shopify product managers have stores. I have a store. Toby has a store. Harley has a store. We have stores that we sell things on.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like an uncommon thing. And part of our job is to talk to customers all the time. I talk to customers almost every day. And one of the things we do that's also very helpful, which I think more companies should do, we have like everyone at Shopify can become a customer service rep for a little while and just answer questions of things that are just totally foobarred. And that allows you to feel the pain. It's also honestly helpful because, like in many ways, because the type of customers we have, like our job is to serve independent business owners, right? People who want to create a thing that doesn't exist. And in many ways, they're like us. They're builders, just builders of different kinds. We build software, they build brands. And so they can kind of speak our language, which is very helpful.
Yeah, they're basically all entrepreneurs, I mean.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's very helpful. It's also very helpful that Shopify is full of ex-founders. So it's a company building for founders, but built by founders, or people who at least are very founder-like. Even people who at Shopify who aren't founders have a founder mentality.
Yeah. I'll be like, I get along a lot better with ex-founders at these large companies than like corporate types. Even though I'm not a founder myself. Yeah.
No, it's hard to imagine what Shopify would look like if it was run by corporate types, honestly. It probably would have never been built, to be honest, in the first place, because no corporate type thought this would be a good business. Right?
Yeah.
Like, in fact, every 5-year strategy memo written about Shopify from when Shopify started, even at IPO, was like, this is a pretty bad business. It's like, right, cool, thanks.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you guys, like a lot of the other big tech companies really focus on the numbers, right? Like you got to hit some OKR. or something.
Yeah, we're not an OKR company. I actually think there's lots of important things that can't be measured.
Yeah.
And not everything that can be measured is important. And we believe the problem is if you are too focused on turning 1 into 1.1, you will just forgo like everything else that is good and that matters. So yeah, we're not an OKR-driven company. That's not how we think about product building. We're a company of crafters focused on tinkering and perpetual feedback motions. And we think the way we think about it, our job is to answer the following question. You can build one of 3 things at Shopify. You can build platforms, you can build products and features, or you can build experiments. Those are 3 things you can do. And I don't we could spend a bunch of our time trying to figure out what the right OKR for like each of those things are.
Yeah.
And which is basically what happens in lots of companies. Like half the meeting is just taken up deciding if you can measure the right thing.
Yeah.
Or we can just go build the right thing. And I find it a lot easier. This is not saying that there isn't a role for measurement. There's a large role for measurement and like making sure you're doing the right thing. But it's not, product building is not the same thing as like being a stockbroker. It just isn't. They're just different jobs.
It's a matter of like having taste, and you kind of know when a product resonates with the customer or not, right? You kind of know. You can have a feeling.
Yeah. I can't, and you can't like. Unfortunately, this is why I think there's so few good product managers in the world. It's not a thing that I can necessarily teach. Like I can't teach taste. I can't teach you to be the type of person that takes an extreme amount of ownership over every problem. But I can't really teach you to have empathy. I can help you fine-tune those things, obviously. But my job is to pick the people who have those 3 things already.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's about people's core values, I think. Like they want to get, yeah, exactly. Cool. That's awesome. I love that culture. Maybe I should maybe I should explore Shopify.
We're hiring, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's talk about the topic, meetings. So at the beginning of the year, you had this operation called Chaos Monkeys, and it basically just like cancel all recurring meetings. I'm just curious, like, how do you guys end up doing this? Was it during like winter break? You were like, this is like not sustainable.
It was literally over a Christmas break. Like we had a conversation and then like we wrote the code to do it. It literally happened over Christmas break.
Yeah.
It was like I think Toby and I were talking about how it is terrible, like what you want to do and what you end up doing. Like literally no one said, I want to grow up and sit in meetings all day long. And no one came to Shopify to sit in meetings. People came here to and help entrepreneurs succeed, help founders. And it just so happens to like do really good work as a builder, you need focus time. And focus time and meeting time are the opposite things from each other. Like you need uninterrupted focus time. And if your entire day is peppered by half-hour meetings here and there, you just can't ever get going.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine if Van Gogh had to paint while perpetually interrupted by someone every 20 minutes. Like, it just...
that would be good, yeah.
So, and the work we do is, like, honestly closer to that than it is having a widget factory, right? It's just our work. It's just much closer to, like, that. So, we think it's important. Uninterrupted time is, like, precious. And what we did was 2 things, right? We actually like both. We did a series of things where we like canceled all meetings from 1 to 3 people, or reinstated our no meeting Wednesday, removed a bunch of channels that we thought were unnecessary. But the more important thing we did was we changed the default. We changed the default answer for a meeting from being yes to no. So if someone sends you a calendar invite, your default answer is yes, unless you're otherwise busy. At Shopify, the answer is no, unless you need to be in that meeting, right? So the default answer changed, and this is like had immense input. Shopify is incredibly more productive this year. I think we've like deleted some like 322 hours of meetings. That's like 36 years worth of meetings. And we've seen like the average time people spend in meetings is down like 33%. The company's shipping 25% faster. It's been meaningful change in Shopify.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So basically like, it's less about...
Right. There was also no 5-year strategy behind this. We didn't write a strategy doc. We just wrote the code to do the Chaos Monkey.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like no startup writes a 5-year strategy like that. That's just bullshit. Like how do you know what the hell's going on in 5 years? Yeah.
It's the world's moving too fast for me to know what's happening 5 years from now. Like my job is to keep our merchants on the leading edge of technology, such that when you choose Shopify, you're making the ideal choice that will always keep you tech forward. You'll never have to worry about being left behind because you invest in the wrong stack. That's my job. And in order to do that, the company needs to be much more nimble.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we don't do hard things. We don't do things that take a lot of time. We do those things. We just don't have a central planning committee whose job is to decide how many widgets we need 17 years from now.
That's great. Yeah, that sounds great. You talk about having craft time. There's an argument to be made that like people like you are like managing hundreds of people, that maybe your job is just sitting in meetings and trying to empower people all day. Like, do you also value your personal craft time, or?
Yeah. I have very, very, very few meetings on Wednesdays. Like today I have 2, and this is one of them. So I have my own craft time. Like, I build things still. I work on product. That's what I spend most of my time doing. So, look, I'm a manager, so I'm not knocking on managers. Management is important. Management is incredibly important. It just isn't the only thing that's important, right?
Yep.
So do managers have meetings? Sure, of course. I have meetings all the time. But what managers need to do is recognize that the most important part of their job is to make sure crafters don't have to spend all their time doing things that managers should do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you've worked in big tech companies, but most big tech companies, the largest problems they usually have is they run out of meeting rooms. There's a perpetual problem at big tech companies is there aren't enough meeting rooms. And it doesn't matter how many meeting rooms there aren't enough of them. And I think that's a sign that there's the emperor doesn't have that much clothing on.
Yeah, it's like you build like a 5-lane highway and there's always cars filling it or something. You just kind of encourage the behavior. Yeah. Do you guys have a strong writing culture, or is like some other best practice to not have meetings?
We have a much stronger writing culture than the average company does. We also have a much stronger sharing culture. Like when we used to have offices, we don't have offices anymore. When we used to have offices, there was posters all over the wall that said, "Do things, tell people." Like, it was like all over the place. And Shopify's core, we have our own operating system for how we run the company. It's called GSD. It stands for Get Shit Done. That's we write our own software. And part of it's the core thing is written updates frequently, like weekly written updates. And that is much easier to do and much better to do and much more easily consumed than a daily huddle or like something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like a lot of the decisions I've found can be just resolved through like async written. And then if you go back and forth like 20 times, you can figure it out, then have a meeting. Sure.
No, I mean, look, this is literally true, Peter. Like, what you said actually is true. An existence of a meeting is a sign of a failure of another process. It just means that like the back and forth you did async didn't work, so let's just have a meeting. But like, what you really should do is figure out why that back and forth didn't work and make it such that those back and forth work better in the future. Now, you'll eventually also need to have meetings, but like, it's better if just that system works rather than like an existence of a meeting is almost always signs of a missing API. Just like what it is, like the information you need to do to make that decision didn't exist, so you need to have a meeting to figure out what the answer was. Once you have the meeting, the thing you really should do is go back and fix the API.
Yeah, also need to run a retro of why this meeting even happened. Yeah. How do you? What if you work at a company that's not Shopify? Like, how do you protect your craft time? Like, can you just say no to meetings, or do you have any?
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you that I think it's incredibly difficult at most companies because most companies are built for managers. They just are. You can actually kind of tell by how buildings work. If you're in a company, usually top floor is reserved for managers. Usually, just usually how it works in most places. Like, one of the things we have at Shopify that's actually unique is Shopify's org chart is inverted. They have an inverted org chart, so the lowest level of the org chart is Toby.
Oh, really?
And the companies that's what it goes up from Toby. So the company's been deliberate about servant leadership since its founding. So I think it's incredibly difficult, man. So like, my advice to people who want to spend their time building and focusing on their craft rather than sitting in meetings is this: if you're very good at your job and if you value your crafts, just go to shopify.com/careers.
Okay, got it. All right, I'll definitely write that down and keep that in mind. Yeah, cool. Okay, just a few more questions. Let's like talk about the product review some more, right? Like I'm just like a PM and I had this like big presentation to the CEO, and I found that like a lot of PMs they want to tell the DC story. They want to like, I thought about all this, everything's going extremely well. Here's just like a status update for you. It's like to me that's like a total waste of time. It's like, what do you think from an exec perspective?
No, I think I think you should not have that meeting. Like, I think it's like status update meetings are very odd meetings. By the way, I think like David is among the world's best CEOs. Just like, it's very clear that he is. And I think Roblox also thinks about the world similarly in like, as we do Shopify, which is like what is a more important thing. And we're both on this journey of building software to get rid of the things that traditional companies have basically done by management as much as possible.
Yes.
Because like once you give like root access to your OS to like someone else, you just like might as well be someone else. So yeah, I think there's a real thing. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think Shopify is alone in this. There are a few of us. I think Roblox is one of those companies that is trying very hard to build a new type of company that wasn't accidentally designed.
Yes.
So we ask the question is what, like we ask why very frequently about the key tenets of a business that very few people would ask why about. Like honestly, like this is a real question. We asked why about gap accounting at one point, and it turns out you should use gap accounting because everyone else does. But like that's like there are very few things about which that is not true. But we want to know why something happens, so we don't cargo cult and we don't do something just because someone else does it. Just because someone else does it is a very good reason not to do that thing. Like and this is what happens at most companies, right, Peter? Most companies adopt industry best practices, but industry best practices are frequently, because they've been written down, it means someone used to do them a long time ago. So many people did them a long time ago that someone had time to write them down. So by the time you read about it, it's probably way out of date. In fact, the people who used to them probably no longer do them. So if you always try to get to industry past practices, what you actually are doing is slowing yourself down, taking yourself back in time to something that people who used to no longer do. And that's just like really terrible. And like, that's basically what most companies that are not founder-led end up being, right? They end up being like run by a series of people who want to minimize their risk. Thus, they always adopt industry best practices.
Yeah, I think the inertia as companies grow is just to become like just become like a crappier place to work as you get bigger and bigger. You really have to fight every day to keep the culture that you had before. It's like, that's my experience.
You have to rage against the machine all the time.
The newsletter is called the creator economy, right? And Shopify is like one of the main enablers. How do you plan to support creators beyond an e-commerce platform, or like, what are some big areas?
Yeah, I mean, look. So one of our jobs at Shopify is not to be perpetually distracted, by like things. So we try very hard to focus on this area we have picked, right? Which is how can we help people reach for independence, building companies, building specifically retail businesses. Now, it just so happens that a very good way to monetize yourself as a creator is by building a retail business, right? Like Mr. Beast is on Shopify for a reason, right?
Yep.
Like it's a real thing. It's not like, and like we have products in there. We have like a product called Collabs, which lots of creators use. We have a set of tools that are very good for creators. But I want to be clear what we're not going to do. We're like, our job isn't to do everything. Our job is to be the ideal piece of software you choose that guarantees that you have not made a mistake when you want to sell something to someone, right? Now, like you can be a creator that does affiliate links. Cool, we have a product for you. You can be a creator who wants to start your own brand. We have a product for you. But if you're a creator who wants to create new content for VR, you should use some other piece of software. But when it comes time to sell something in VR, you should use Shopify because we will be exceptional at that. But that's not a good answer because usually when you ask like company executives, do you have a solution for my problem? The answer every company executive always gives is yes, of course I do. I have a solution for every problem. But we don't. We don't have a solution for every problem. If your problem is this particular size problem that you want to sell something to someone, we're perfect. If it's not, please go use someone else.
I think that's a great answer, actually. I mean, like going back to the strategy part, like if there's one thing about strategy, just like focus on one thing. That's strategy. So I think just focus on that. Make Shopify
the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing.
Exactly. I don't know whose quote that is, but yeah.
I have no idea.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, man. Yeah. I'll type this up and I'll share with you. Yeah.
Cheers.